Welcome to Toy Business Unboxed, your gateway to the secrets of the toy industry. Here, Jason Shea, a toy entrepreneur and expert in the field.
Every product we develop is really inspired by some of the real life experience that we have with our son.
60% of all toys last year were sold on Amazon, which is incredible.
Be passionate about it because it's a road, it's a journey.
Like when you have an idea that you think is like gonna somewhat like change the world, make things better, I'd say go for it.
We'll guide you through the enchanting world of toy design, marketing, and manufacturing. Now let the unboxing begin.
Hello, welcome to another episode of Toy Business Unboxed. Today, we're joined by Dina, a crowdfunding powerhouse who have raised over $10 million for indie games through her company, Dina Ramse Studio, with a passion to help creators succeed. She and her team have provided everything from social media management to rulebook editing. So I think today is going to be a very interesting episode to kind of talk about all the different experiences and different stories that Dina and her team has run across over the many years. So thank you for joining us on the podcast episode today.
Thank you for having me. This is so much fun. I love going on podcasts.
And I think it would be best to start off kind of sharing with our audience what inspired you to start doing what you do? Because I think you have a background in video and mobile game as well before you kind of switch focus and now focus more on like helping other companies.
Yeah.
Can you kind of share some of that stories?
Sure. I've always been, I like to think that I've always been in games. Like my first gig that I ever picked up was to help out on a role-playing game that was launching, and I was only 14 at the time. So in a way, I've always been in games. It was just how, well, what I did in games was different. Like I used to work with an organization in Norway where we were working on getting games approved as art with the European Union, which was a fantastic project. I worked with them and Hyperion for over 10 years. And after that, I started working with Electronic Arts. I worked with King Games, which is just a lot of fun, but also the video gaming industry has a lot of crunch. There's a lot of pressure, a really short time, and everyone is sort of pushed to their absolute limit all the time. And then it's just like this really vicious cycle. When I was looking at helping one of my friends doing a crowdfunding campaign for their board game, it's just, I realized that there's no support for the indie creators. They kind of have to do everything by themselves. And they're very often, exhausted, and they're experiencing this, very time-sensitive crunch, and they're putting so much pressure on themselves. And I don't want that. Like, obviously, I've experienced it myself. I know what it's like, and I figured with my know-how in terms of like marketing and social media, I used to work as an influencer in a different industry, so I know how all of these things work and the importance of building communities. We applied all that knowledge into a couple of campaigns, and it was just like the feedback was fantastic. And when I announced that I wanted to, take on some clients and really help and dig into how we could help people better crowdfund, I had a client in less than a couple of hours. But at the time I announced it, I went for a lunch break and I had a client, and I was like, damn, like this could be a thing. So I started looking around for finding people that could work with me to make sure that we can provide that whole experience, because very often they'll ask for graphic designers, they need to, content creations, there is influencers to work with, it's who to choose for manufacturing and all of these like fulfillment understandings, just like project management and art directions. And all of these things are things that I've touched or worked with or know someone who has done. So I gathered my team, we're 5 now, and I absolutely love them. Like this, being able to provide all of these resources for the clients that we work with and really hold their hands throughout the entire process is fantastic. And we see that these creators come back earlier than others who do it all by themselves.
I see. And I think Kickstarter is also, not just Kickstarter, but Indiegogo and other crowdfunding companies also getting very, very oversaturated. So it's getting harder for, especially the indie game creator to really stand out and make it successful. Can you also share with a listener some of the key ingredient when you're working with the other brand and other designer, some of the most important, maybe just a few things that you always kind of work on alongside with your client? to make sure they have a successful campaign?
Of course, yeah. Obviously, one of the very important things is obviously making sure that you have an audience, that there's some sort of community building, be it newsletters, Discord, through play testing. Like there's so many different ways to do that when it comes to making an audience for your game. So we really look at the strength for each of the creators and find what they're good at, so that we give them tasks each week. We take on more like a project management as well as all of the marketing tasks, so that we have a very nice structure. Like this week we're going to work on this, and next week we're going to start working on that. And I find that that's a really nice way of testing it, because then you have a clear goal for yourself in terms of each week, and you're not sort of running around wondering, what can I do for my game, and stressing about everything. So we go through the entire process with that. I think it's great.
It's like the way you mentioned about how community building is really a key role in crowdfunding. But how do you nurture those community? Are you focusing more on getting their emails, putting them onto a social media as a followers, or what are some of the mechanisms that's been working?
Like I mentioned, yeah. So it's very often about what does the game needs, because not everyone needs or wants to have a mega campaign. Not everyone has the budget or time for having a campaign that does the 6 figures, 7 figures. It's just not feasible for everyone to do that. With more than 1,000 games launching on a crowdfunding platforms every single year, whereas maybe 50 of those is through my company, it means that obviously you have to work really hard. And I think it's so cool that we get to see this sort of renaissance in the gaming industry, because it's turning from being very hobby into something that is actually, like providing jobs for people. Is more is turning more and more business, which means that everyone has to work a little bit harder. We're raising the bar for what is sustainable businesses in the industry, and we're having less sort of fluke releases from designers and publishers who are just doing one game. They very often want to stay in the industry, and they're sort of really clinging on to making a network and community. So everyone is so much more friendlier when we know that this is what we're doing. We'll go to conventions because we're going to catch up with friends in the industry. It's not so much just for that one extra next release or anything. You get to network on so many other areas than we used to do.
I see. And when you talk about, and back to the community building aspect, do you also help maybe running ads to gather a bigger followers for your audience? Do you more for an influencer strategy, or maybe a little bit of
all of those things? Yeah. So we have an ads manager that work with our company full time. We also have a marketing assistant who is mostly our influencer liaison. So she'll be, we'll go together. We have a fantastic database on a couple of thousand content creators that we worked with through these various years, and we'll find the one that is most likely to love the title that we have to work with. So obviously each project should have at least one person who's like, this is my best game of the year. If I could have just one game at the end of this year, this is the one that I love. And you want to find that for every single game that you work on. So we put a lot of effort into making our database and putting in what content creators usually like, what kind of preference they have, what kind of groups are they usually playing in, so we can optimize on getting those high feedbacks that we're loving to see. And obviously sometimes it is just sitting down and playtesting with both creators and content creators and influencers at conventions. So we try to reach out and be like, hey, we're going to this place. If you're going, let's sit down at times, play the games together, and really helping our creators also showcasing that journey for themselves. It's incredibly important, but we try to match how our approach is, be it really heavy ads focus or really heavy community focus, or a good mix with the type of creator that they are. So some of our designers are very much so online aversive. So obviously in those cases, we do less online communities, but we'll work harder on local communities and finding gaming cafes, local smaller events to attend to. And if they are very much chronically online like myself, then obviously we'll do Discord, maybe a Facebook group, and do a lot more online initiatives. Sometimes we'll hang out on Reddit after hours and put more money into ads, for example. So we try to find the right fit based on what kind of person they are, as well as where are the audience for their game.
I see. Okay, thank you for sharing that. And I know there's so many different crowdfunding platforms nowadays. There's Kickstarter, there's Indiegogo. I think there's also GameFund.
GameFund, BackerKit.
What are when you're looking at the platform, which one should people think about? I know Kickstarter is one of the biggest in the space, but there's also other ones. When you're working with your client on deciding which platform to go for, is there any particular criteria you're looking for to decide on what is the right platform?
So obviously Kickstarter has the benefits of having been around almost the longest. I think Indiegogo is slightly older, if I remember correct. I think Kickstarter started in 2009. So obviously in terms of like searchabilities and trust and track records, Kickstarter is definitely like the go-to in that space. But if you do have a game that is less mainstream and maybe like a heavy board game that is, you know, requiring like a 4 6 hours, maybe it's a longer campaign game, we do see that some of our clients do prefer going on Game Founder BackerKit for those campaigns because they are more like a board game or a board game platform. They don't have as much searchability. It takes longer for them to list on Google searches. So you have to work a little bit harder to bring the audience in. But the ones who are there are usually really happy with the platforms. All of these three, like both BackerKit, GameFound, and Kickstarter, are sort of working really hard on nurturing the relationships and signing like exclusive deals with some of the larger publishers in the space. So it's really interesting to see how this shift in the market has been in the last couple of years with the gaining popularity of GameFound as a platform. For most of our clients who are more on the lighter game side or at mid-weight, we find that Kickstarter definitely gives us the best response in terms of like funding levels and also just like being able to tap into a more mainstream side market.
Okay, yeah, thank you for sharing some of the differences. And over your experience, what are some of the biggest challenge that the creator face when they are doing their crowdfunding campaign, and how do you help them overcome some of those?
Oh, I think the biggest one for everyone who goes into crowdfunding is to sort of showcase enough of yourself and who you are as a person to gather trust. Because if you don't have trust, people are not going to pledge for your campaign. And there has to be enough of like your vision of what you want to do with your project, no matter what it is. It doesn't have to be games. It could be anything. If there's no trust, you basically don't have a campaign. If there's no clear vision or if there's no market fit, you don't have a good campaign. So those three things sort of come in together, because if you're showing that you can trust me, here are things I've done, or this is who I am, this is my vision, and you're gaining trust through the vision or you're gaining trust through the market fit and kind of showcasing those things, we still find that you should always collaborate with at least 1 to 3 content creators to sort of have that social proofing on top of it, because again, this lends itself into trust. So trust is a big thing when it comes into crowdfunding platforms, because I'm giving you money, I want a thing in return for this, you know, and this is our usual pipelines for board games is like, you know, 9 to 12 months, sometimes up to 3 years, depending on where they are in the process. So it's so incredibly important to be very upfront of where you are in the journey, what is the timelines. So those are obviously like the biggest challenges.
Yeah, and I think the often concern that people also raise is like some of the people will back the campaign, but they never receive the product. And that create kind of like a bad taste in people's mouths in some of the crowdfunding campaigns.
It really does. And there's been, you know, during the pandemic as well, there's quite a lot of publishers who went under, who weren't able to produce the things they wanted to do from the crowdfunding platform campaigns that they had successfully prior to that. And that hurt the audience and the community a lot, because that obviously lends to a distrust on like people being able to deliver projects. And we saw that some people were trying to run a secondary or even a third campaign in order to recover some of the additional costs that they were facing due to like shipping delays and having to pay for extra warehousing, or just like supply changes that we were facing with like there being low on papers and cardboards and tokens, just not being able to provide all those pieces. So the process was sort of really long drawn, people having games, you know, on factory floors for months before they were able to get them out, because they couldn't end up on a freight situation because all of the containers were up in the US, sort of stuck and not coming back to China for being picked up. And these are obviously like you couldn't really have planned for those things to happen. So the costs that was really hurt the industry, and the publisher who went under, some of them were fantastic and had some great games planned. Just seeing now we're still sort of recovering from that situation. One of our clients who got stuck in this process, now they're just finished production and they're shipping out in the next couple of months. You know, it's like we know that they haven't been able to do any more games since then, and they've been working extra hard on their side in order to recover costs because they didn't want to charge their backers more, because obviously the situation was it is. Yeah, so it's interesting to see. I do hope that we continue to recover, that we see some of these publishers maybe come back to the crowdfunding space and making games, because some of them are absolutely fantastic. Yeah. Trust is a big thing.
For sure, yeah. Thank you for sharing that story. And I know over the year you have raised a lot of money through the crowdfunding platform. I think the number we got is 10 million in the last 5 years. What have been some of your most memorable campaign and why?
I keep being asked this question. It's really hard because I work so close with all of these creators. Like, I meet with these people weekly, right through the entire process of working with them. Every single week, you know, we're tackling the next task list and everything, and I'm ordering my team around, and it's always me that our clients are meeting with. So I think I can maybe narrowed it down to 3, if that's okay. I'm having a hard time choosing, but definitely we did Good Dog Bad Zombie with Tessa Collective in the US, in the States, and we got to work with dogfluencers. And it's this really cute, light game that you can play with your kids. My kid absolutely adored it. It was his favorite game for like 9 months straight, and we got to work with dogfluencers and sort of pitching out, which is obviously completely different from what we usually do. And I think at the end we were working with creators that had like an audience of like 5 million people on this really cute little board game, and it was so much fun to see like how that audience just fully embraced what we were doing. And we were putting some of their dogs into the campaign, and you could get your own little card with your own dog during the campaign. And we went to a convention to showcase the game during their live campaign, because they launched it in May last year. And we had people come up and like, oh, I'm gonna have the picture of my dog that passed away. We had so many stories like this of like forever dogs and like making the art out of them. And it was just like, I was keeping my tears back and going like, okay, gotta reset. You're still at a convention. And we had so many people just come up to us because they were, you know, emotionally connected to what we were trying to do. And it was just so beautiful. And we also were able to donate to a shelter during that campaign. So all of the extra money that we made during that campaign was donated into a charity that works with One Tail at a Time, to prevent dogs from basically being put down and find their forever homes, which was so sweet. I absolutely loved working with those people. Then we had, earlier the same year, we worked with Rebirth Games, which is also one of our creators from the States. They did Chemical Overload, and I had to have this really difficult conversation with them that they needed a better game board, because it wasn't right. It wasn't quite there. I hate having those tough conversations, but you know you have to, because it's like, oh, your game is almost there. Like, we could just need to improve the table present. And we had a chat about it, and they were like, yeah, actually, you have some good points. And we looked together at what we could do. And I was so excited because like not that long after, we received this, and like this board is gorgeous.
Okay.
So yeah, we redid the whole board, and it wasn't originally going to have a board at all. And just seeing that sort of vision that we were creating during our meetings just come to life with this amazing artist that we got to work with was so fantastic. Because it was like, I think your game can do slightly better than what we're doing. Let's change these things. And it was such a small thing to change too. So we didn't sort of eat too much into their margins or anything. And it was very smart ones, because it absolutely must have like doubled our table presence, and people were absolutely loving it. So we got a lot of great feedback on the new board for that campaign. And it was just being able to like spot things like that really early on, and being able to tackle it before we were doing too much audience gathering. And that was so cool.
I see. And Based on your experience, what are some of the common mistakes that people make when they are launching their first campaign, and how can they avoid them?
Okay. I think obviously we've already talked about like audience and not having a community is being important, not putting enough of yourself online to gather that trust. Obviously, I also being a marketer, I have to say marketing. Because that's a big thing that they're not marketing themselves. Maybe they don't have a great pitch. This is something we see a lot when we go at conventions, and we'll see people having fantastic games, but they don't know how to pitch it. Or they don't know how to teach it, which is even worse. And I just be like, ooh, actually, like if you just do this instead, it's going to be much better. And then they'll come back and be like, wow, actually, that was great feedback. Yeah. Not playtesting their games enough. So obviously, if you haven't had, we say that you should have at least 100 hours of playtesting time prior to launching on a crowdfunding platform, ideally 100 hours outside of yourselves and your own little bubble. Because you need a player feedback, you need to know if the math is mathing, and all of those things. Is it a good market fit? Those things will come up through playtesting enough. And I think probably the biggest one is not asking for help, trying to do everything by yourself and not knowing when to stop. Because I've seen people really burn themselves on that thing.
Yeah, I think especially for the people that do the crowdfunding first time, I did one of like a small crowdfunding a few years ago, and I didn't realize how much work is involved.
There is.
The project. I think we end up spending more time and money than the money we're able to raise. So it's not an easy task to have a successful campaign, especially in today's market with so many like very like mature and very savvy marketer like yourself that we are competing against. And for some of the people that's trying to do everything by themselves, sometimes they might just don't have the knowledge, don't have the experience, or simply don't have the time to do all the work, building the communities, talking to the potential for the campaign. That's definitely a lot of the planning that need to happening like way before the campaign, and also during the campaign, and also after the campaign as well, but doesn't realize before they kind of jump in. I think some of the experience also is similar when we as a company, we also help a lot of our clients with like launching on Amazon. A lot of that is similar because there's a lot of things that need to happen before, during, and also after the launch on Amazon. People don't realize that. They just throw the product up there and think, oh, I'll just throw it up. But it doesn't work that way. And a lot of people just don't realize. They just don't know what they
It really is. I find that you should always like be able to benchmark anyone coming in wanting to launch or like showcase something. It's like, are they online? Is there somewhere that they've said that they're working on it? It's like, are they sharing their own project? Because if you don't trust your own project, or if you're not proud of your own project, why should I? Like, why should I be excited? I think that's such a big one. The more people are willing to sort of shed off this little layers of like, I don't want to, and the standoffishness, the more they're willing to that, the better we tend to see that the connection during the campaigns are so much stronger.
Yeah, and I think one more thing is over the year, because the crowdfunding is getting so popular, there's a lot of companies try to help people with crowdfunding as well. And I want to also talk about like as entrepreneur, when they are selecting the right partner to help them with crowdfunding efforts. What are some of the suggestions that you will give to the entrepreneur that's looking for a partner? Out for?
That's a great question. Okay. Obviously, my company, we mostly end up working with people who are on the spectrum, because we find that those are the people who benefit the most from having the framework to sort of, this is what we're doing, and sort of be creative within reasons. And we're able to sort of guide them through. So a lot of the clients that I end up working with are definitely somewhere on a spectrum, from like full blown out ADHD, autistic spectrums, which is, I love that, because those are the people that I obviously resonate the most with, and we tend to have really good communication, and we understand each other like preferences for communication styles. And I think that's super important when it comes to choosing is, are they able to provide you the information, or do you trust them enough to do their job and having the hard conversations with you? And are you open enough to listen? Because obviously if you are none of those things and you don't feel like they're connected, then maybe that's not the person for you. I once had a potential client who came out to me saying, I hate you, everything you do and what you stand for. I want to work with you because I find that I listen best if I don't like them. Because it's
really
triggering something inside me, and because I don't like you, I know you're gonna do good.
That's like the weirdest thing I have ever heard. Okay.
And I'm like, what? He's like, yeah, I don't like peppy people. I don't like how you're smiling all the time, and you're dyeing your hair, you shouldn't do that. And I was just like, I'm very offended, but also like, I'm gonna keep listening because this is so weird. And it's gonna be a great story one day.
Yeah, that's really weird. It's like opposite of the reason why you want to work with the person.
And I said, I don't think this is a good way to work. If you hate me, like that's probably not the kind of. But he said that I'm willing to give it a try if you do, and I'm like, well, I might, because this was like super early in making the company, so I had extra time, and I'm like, sure, if you are willing to pay me for just having a chat, I can absolutely charge you for you hating me. Fine, like let's do it. And it took maybe 3 meetings, and the guy absolutely adored me.
I see. Yeah.
He completely switched over, going like, I don't like you, but to like, oh my gosh, you really know your shit. And I'm like, a little bit more love.
So you did end up working with the person.
We did. We tried it. I wouldn't do it now, but when you're in your first year and you have the time to sort of try things out, even if they're saying that you hate you, at least there was a lot of passion.
Yeah.
And very often turn passion from one side to the other.
Honest.
Yeah, he was very honest. So it lended itself to a very interesting collaboration over a couple of weeks.
I see. Interesting. And can you also share some of the emerging crowdfunding trend that you observe, especially in 2025 and beyond?
Yeah, this is fun. Okay, so obviously board games is like any other media. It goes through trends that goes up and down. And I usually say to people that if you look at what's popular on Netflix or Amazon Prime videos, you can usually see that some of these things appearing in games 2 to 3 years later, because it takes time to make a board game. So we've obviously had the whole, high fantasy being the coolest thing ever, and we've had our waves of like octopus appearing in games and like otters, which was really popular shortly after the axolotls in Minecraft appeared. We were having axolotls in board games. So when we're based on like these waves that we're seeing, obviously solar punk is obviously has been something that is coming back every now and then, mostly because of Ghibli, really. Whenever we're seeing a resurgence of people sort of wanting to go into some of the cozy vibes, we see those kind of things coming back. Definitely seeing more sort of comic booky styled art coming back. That it hasn't been around for a while. And is sort of gaining a little bit of popularity. So I'm very excited because it's very cutesy art, and usually means that we're having a lot more female artists that are working on games, which I'm loving to see. And very happy we're sort of done with dragons for a bit. Pretty sure we're going to have another dragon wave coming in the autumn. But it is, I think the biggest one in terms of like crowdfunding space is that we're seeing less people spend a lot of money on these really massive flashy videos. That was very much the thing, like pandemic to last year, where people would have, fully movie or video game styled videos for their campaigns. And we're seeing more and more people sort of doing smaller videos, maybe like a minute with an overview of their game, somewhere even filming themselves. And I really love this because it's obviously, for me as a marketer, you're showing yourself on camera, it leads to more trust, and it's more personal, which I think is fantastic because it allows people to connect more with the creator. So we've saw a big wave coming with more projects launching on the Kickstarter and other crowdfunding platforms that was like mega campaigns that were taking a lot of attention. And I love just seeing how indies are sort of more now embracing the indiness and being like, yeah, so we are small and we're going to have a small campaign. I'm kind of being also okay with that and not thinking that they can push into the wild 6-figure campaigns without putting in the work in it. So I think those are definitely some things that we're seeing, that people are understanding that it takes a lot of time and it takes a lot of work to have a successful campaign.
For sure. And as we're wrapping up today's interview, for someone that's just about to start their first Kickstarter campaign, what are some of your main advice for those listeners?
Ask for help. Definitely. Do network, obviously, in the industry at which you're trying to launch something. Find out like who are the movers and shakers, find out what are they doing right. Why are things working? Be a little bit critical to what is happening as like analyze, because if you don't know how to view data, then you should probably find someone who does, so that you can actually be able to be successful. Because yes, while you can throw money at projects and have some success, you want to make sure that there's sustainability in it, that you're at least getting some of that money back. So do some research into what you're actually planning on doing. See if it is a feasible business opportunity in there, or if there's people you can collaborate with, and ask for help if you're stuck on anything.
For sure. Yeah. Thank you so much for sharing that. And for those listeners who want to learn a little bit more about you and your company, where is the best place for people to find you online?
I am pretty much everywhere. I think the easiest platform to grab me is probably either on our website, obviously dinasaidsostudio.com. I'm also chronically online on like Instagram, posting about our clients or what we're up to there as Dina Said So. And I'm spending quite a lot of time on Facebook. As the millennial I am, in the various Facebook groups there.
I see. Okay. Thank you for sharing that. I'll make sure we put that in the show note. And for our listeners, thank you so much for tuning in to this episode of Toy Business Unboxed podcast. We hope you have enjoyed the conversation and find it insightful and inspiring. If you like what you have heard, make sure to subscribe to our podcast on your favorite platform so you never miss an episode. We really appreciate your support and would love it if you can leave us a review and share the podcast with your friends and colleagues. For more resources, tips, and the latest update in the toys and game industry, visit our website at toy-launch.com. Join the conversation and connect with us on social media using the hashtag ToyBusinessUnboxed. And we would love to hear your feedback and suggestions for future episodes. Until next time, keep innovating, keep creating, keep bringing joy to toys. This is Jason Shea signing off on the Toy Business Unboxed podcast, and we'll see you in the next episode. Thank you so much, everyone.